It did it again. Welcome to the Shall We Football podcast. On this podcast, we talk football and only football. So help us God. I'm your host, Ryan. With me are AJ and Colt, per usual. We have a special guest, Callum. He's going to help us with the way too early for this shit NFL power rankings part. We did 32 through 17, the bottom half of the league, in season 2, episode 15. This is season 2, episode 16. Numbers 16 through 1, the top half of the NFL. Welcome, Callum Ratcliffe. He's joining for the NFL Power Rankings Part 2. He does love the Eagles. His shirt says so because he doesn't love himself. His podcast, The Brits Guide to the NFL. That's at Brits Guide NFL on thetwitter.com. That's on all major podcast platforms. You can find him personally at Callum Rats16 on thetwitter.com. He's also going to attempt our now globally renowned, the pronunciation game. And we shall present the McCorkle Award winner for this episode's most valuable Potter. It's named for our beautiful friend, McCorkle Jones, now with the New England Patriots. Here are the rules. We shall all, it is our solemn promise, be on our worst behavior. We will keep the name calling to an absolute maximum. We are not here to make friends. We're here to lose friends. Do not wait until people are done talking to voice your opinion. Keep it brisk. One of us will eventually have to take a shit. Callum, any last words before we dive into this thing?
Oh, let's go for it.
Love it. Shall we football, fellas?
Why not?
Let's go.
Yeah, that was cute. Number 16, the Minnesota Vikings. Maybe got a little help on the offensive line later in the first round. They have great weapons with Justin Jefferson and Dalvin Cook. Interior defensive line, strength again. Nobody opposite Danielle Hunter at the edge on that defensive line, though. Corner's still a weakness. Patrick Peterson, the corpse of Patrick Peterson wandering around in the secondary may help a little bit. Anthony Harris, not on the team anymore, cap casualty. And can Kirk Cousins make up for a rebuilding defense with a rookie left tackle? AJ, beautifully done on the slides.
Yeah, I feel real good. I'm not feeling real good about the fact that you didn't read that pun. Read that pun, please.
Which pun are we talking about?
The top one.
Oh, they finally, Darius saw the light and got a left tackle. That was really gross.
Nice, Ryan. Good one, Ryan.
Ew, I feel dirty.
Is anyone else really excited to see what the Vikings do? This feels like a new team.
It does. Yeah.
Just getting a left tackle. It feels like a brand new team.
I had them a little bit lower than this. In mine, I think I had them at 19, which isn't terribly low. It's still just they are a middle of the pack football team for me that is kind of tough to place. I think floor is probably 19, ceiling's probably somewhere around 13 or 14. Agreed.
So you don't think I can't envision this team falling too low because of Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. That's the only thing that keeps me from moving these guys almost to easily to 19, maybe 20. I just think Justin Jefferson is, God help us all if he gets any better.
He's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Callum, what are your thoughts here, Big Dog?
Every time I hear that name, Justin Jefferson, it just I just picture Jalen Rodriguez's face, and but I think the Vikings defense will probably be a bit better next year. I think it was a disappointing year for Mike Zimmer, who was quite notoriously strict on defense, and I think I think I read a stat the other day where they were in the top 10 of points allowed per game. So they lost a couple of boys to us, but I think Patrick Peterson's a great addition for them. I'm still not. I mean, Kirk Cousins is obviously not going to be the future, but they've got weapons on offense, and I think they will be better. I think they tailed off towards the end of the season last year. I think they were slightly underwhelming, but I think they'll be back this year, and I think a bit better as well.
Yeah, I'm with that. And I think to your point, that defense will get better. Mike Zimmer had to have had dental work done in the offseason because he must have been grinding his teeth all season.
Oh, I thought you saw a photo and he got veneers like my high school
Yeah, that's what
baseball
I was
coach after
thinking.
my sophomore year.
Well, everyone needs veneers eventually.
I mean, yeah, I'm barreling that way right now.
Mike Zimmer's almost 70.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Ooh, good for him. Staying light, staying brisk.
Yeah.
So Colt, what are your thoughts here and some fantasy implications? I do have to say real quick, what do we think if this team becomes that run first with Daniel Cook now that they have a semblance of an offensive line just by sticking a left tackle in there? Who knew? And then relying on that retooled run defense with Pierce signing Tomlinson, drafting some depth. Still no one opposite Hunter, but probably better run defense and a solid running game. Could they be a team that just rides that?
I think that's what he wants to do. Zimmer is all about running the ball and playing defense. He's got one of the best pure running backs in the game, I think. And Dalvin Cook and Nick Chubb, aside from Derrick Henry, they're, in my opinion, the best pure runners. But the thing is, for me, is for fantasy and reality, is I want to see Cousins have more ceiling games. Now, with the ascendance of Justin Jefferson last year, it's in his bag. But how often does he have to play to that level? How often does Zimmer, require him to play to that level predicated on the defense and running? I think they're going to open it up.
I think you'll agree with me here, and possibly Colt, Callum, no idea. But I think that Kirk Cousins is good for at least a handful of monster games.
Agreed. Yeah. Kirk Cousins is fine.
Yeah. And that's the thing from a fantasy perspective is he's like kind of the epitome of a streaming quarterback. Like he'll get you 20 points probably, but when you're counting on him for that explosion game, he doesn't do it. Like if the matchup is there, it's a smash play. Cousins, he just doesn't really do it. And then the next week, tough defense, and he just he just destroys. He's a little maddening. Not so much, on the fantasy radar, but just wanted to throw that in there. But I think Dalvin Cook's in for a great year. Justin Jefferson.
Two things on that. First, to your point, Justin Jefferson. We talking WR1 by the end of the season, the first question. And two, is it possible he hits a sophomore slump?
That was my question, yeah.
Yeah, I thought about that too. I don't think so. I think his breakout, as just tremendous as it was year one, I think that's going to continue. I think he's inserted dominance as the wide receiver one on the team. Thielen, he's, what is he, 32 now, 31? He's still a great player. But I think Thielen, he made a lot of his hay in the red zone last year from a fantasy perspective. Minus the touchdowns, he would have had a very good year. So I think Thielen could low-key be like an extreme value, depending on how far he falls, because all the love is on Justin Jefferson right now, but rightfully so.
Last question here. Is this a potential playoff team, or where do you put the odds for playoffs here?
I don't love their odds just because of the division they play in. They could finish second in that division. They could win the division if Aaron Rodgers is in Denver.
That's true.
That's the thing is it depends on where 12 goes. If 12 goes to Denver, they win that division. But are they good enough to take a wild card spot away from one of the two teams in the NFC West? I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't either. Callum, what do you think?
I don't. I agree with you guys. I think, in just to touch on Kirk Cousins, I think that, like you said, Colt, like in terms of fantasy, he's that Mr. Consistent guy, but he never puts up the massive numbers. And I know they did suffer from offensive line woes last season, but obviously Christian Darrisaw is going to help him a lot. But in terms of Justin Jefferson as well, like because he put up some unbelievable, record-breaking numbers. Personally, I don't think you can count on him repeating that sort of stuff. I'm not saying that's he could well and truly, go above that. But I think it's incredibly difficult just for the fact that they were quite disappointing. I think Justin Jefferson is going to be going for that wide receiver one role, and I think Adam Thielen as well is still a good player. So I think they'll be better next year, but I can't see him going much further, to be honest.
So last
Well
question,
said.
gentlemen.
That would be okay.
You like that?
Yeah, you're adding last questions to the last question.
If I don't get a "you like that" shirt by the end of 2021, I'm just not doing 2022.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Indianapolis Colts at number 15. Their defense, very good. That was the linchpin of that team last year. They did add Kwity Paye. Their corners, Kenny Moore is still there. Kenny Moore is a very good player. Eric Fisher may not be a go at the start of the season because of that popped Achilles tendon that he suffered in the playoffs. Really good running backs, young wide receivers, tight ends are okay. Mo Alley Cox is due for a big breakout. And then there's your guy, Callum, your former guy, Mr. Wentz from North Dakota State, reunited with Frank Reich. Let's see how he does. Callum, your thoughts before we move on.
Where do I start with this?
Just mute everyone. Callum, you go ahead.
I've seen a lot of Eagles fans quite divided on this subject. A lot of people seeing him playing basketball with his teammates and saying, "Oh, look, Carson's happy." I'm not going to support a player who forced his way out of the city and gave up on this team. Every week in every press conference, he said that he sat there with his little arrogant smiles, saying he's going to improve and he's going to work harder, and he just didn't. I think he quitted on this team. I don't think he had the intangibles. I'm not trying to discredit the importance he was to that Super Bowl run. Without him, it would have happened. So, but I just don't think from day one, I wasn't always. You see a lot of all this Wentzylvania and all this, and I was never fully on board. I don't think he had the intangibles. There was rumors that the locker room was divided constantly. The front office absolutely hero worshipped the guy. There was posters of Carson all over the NovaCare. But I think that also caused a lot of disruptions in terms of the locker room dynamics. And clearly, Jalen Hurts coming in this year, I think he's almost a flip opposite of Carson in terms of his intangibles. He looks like a natural leader. He's a guy that you want to, lead a group of men. I just can't see that in Carson. So obviously, I'll be hoping that he gets 75% of the snaps so we can get that pick. But apart from that, I'm not really going to be supporting him or the Colts, to be honest.
Can I translate the
I
British
love all of that.
niceties?
Ryan, in whatever you're going to say, please insert your feelings about Jalen Hurts because you're not going to get another chance.
I will do that, but I will translate the British niceties into American dialect. Carson Wentz, get the fuck out of Philly. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. Have fun in Indianapolis. I hope you suck there, but I hope you play the whole season.
Need that pick.
Nailed it. Yeah.
Yeah. Callum, I completely agree with you about Jalen Hurts. I got a chance to cover him when I lived in Oklahoma when he came over from Alabama and spent a year as a Sooner. He has all of the intangibles. He was a leader at Alabama. When Tua took his place, he said all the right things. He did all the right things. He came to Oklahoma, learned a very complicated system, and almost won the Heisman Trophy. I really like that kid, and I think he has the potential to be very good if they keep the pieces around him in Philadelphia. I am sort of a Colts fan. I got to cover them when I was in Indiana. I don't love that Carson Wentz is there. Don't love it. We'll see how it goes.
Cool.
I do think they win that division.
What are fantasy implications here, big fella?
Hey, this is a loaded roster for fantasy because I don't feel like any of these wide receivers, like there's not an alpha to me. Like everyone wants Michael Pittman to be this guy. I mean, he ran like 2 routes last year, and I mean,
he had 320 yards and 1 touchdown.
Right. He had like a game or two where he flashed a little bit, right? And I think it's there for the taking for him. You know, T.Y. Hilton's in the twilight of his career. He started to show signs of life late last season, like the vintage T.Y. Hilton we all know and love. I gotta say, my darling Paris Campbell. I'm looking to him. I'm looking to him for the way Wentz utilizes slot receiver and tight ends in Philly. Could have just been, playbook and whatnot, and coach speak up there in Philly. But I think Paris Campbell, he had a great start to the year last year. I think he had 5 catches, 71 yards, week 1 with Phillip Rivers. And in my heart, I was like, this is Keenan Allen to Phillip Rivers in Indy. And then he tore his ACL week 2.
Yep.
So I think the rapport between Wentz and Paris Campbell could be relatively strong right out of the gate. And I'm looking to steal Paris Campbell in the very late rounds and drafts. I think Jonathan Taylor may be a little overpriced for where I would like to take him.
Thank you.
They still have Marlon Mack. I mean, Taylor's a good player. He really broke out late last year. But what it was like owning him in the early to midseason, people were ready to drop him.
Yeah.
Just straight drop him. And Marlon Mack's still there. Naheem Hines is still there. I think Mack's just, he's a depth piece. I think old Jonathan Taylor Thomas, he's locked and loaded as RB1, but I don't want to take him in the first round.
I'm afraid, fellas, this is the beginning of a long run of mediocrity for the Colts, where they're never going to be bad enough to get a pick high enough to really make an impact, and they're never going to be good enough to actually win anything.
Purgatory. I want to say, Callum, that was the best monologue we've had from a guest.
It was beautifully done.
And Ryan, thank you for translating. That was beautiful.
Yeah, get the fuck out. 14, Miami Dolphins in the AFC East. The best secondary in football got better. Xavier Howard, he had 17 interceptions last year. It felt like.
Did he force like 38 fumbles or something?
Yeah, he was very good. They added pieces off the edge. They also have incredible potential at the skill positions, adding Jalen Waddle. Offensive line, still a question though. All eyes on Tua, who is indeed uglier than his cousin Myron. Go Irish.
Thank you.
His cousin Myron Tagovailoa plays for Notre Dame. Tua's a handsome fellow, though. Handsome.
Have you seen Myron?
I have not.
Oh man, he's a strapping lad. So, what are the odds that Tua can stay upright long enough to take advantage of Will Fuller and Jalen Waddle and Mike Gesicki and the whole crew there?
I am still concerned about his definition of open, because he has gotten so used to Alabama open. NFL open is very different, and he ain't got the time to sit back there and wait until somebody gets open. I am concerned about Tua's viability as a starting quarterback. I'm afraid he's the next A.J. McCarron.
Ooh.
I have great fears.
I think a big red flag was something that he said. Was it this week or the past week, where he basically admitted that he didn't bother to learn the playbook for last year? And I don't know. Look, it could all change next year, but he wasn't. If I was a Dolphins fan, it wasn't very inspiring, to be honest, when he did come in. He did have a couple of good games, but he wasn't. He got benched, didn't he, a couple of times? So I don't know. I'm not betting on him, and just to go off that Jalen Waddle, I was quite surprised they picked Jalen Waddle, to be fair. In terms of seeing the board go, and then you think obviously the Bengals went and got Chase, and then you think, well, the Dolphins were all over Twitter saying not the Dolphins in person, but everyone else, like NFL fans, were saying the Dolphins were going to go and get Chase, and then the Bengals got Chase, and then the Dolphins sort of, I thought, was a bit of a panic pick at Jalen Waddle, to be honest, because I don't think you know, that choice between Waddle and Smith, I would have gone Smith. So I was quite surprised that the Eagles managed to the Smith to fall to the Eagles. So I mean, I was incredibly happy for that because I wasn't too big on Jalen Waddle either. So
I would have gone Penei Sewell there, actually. Lynn Bowden did give himself a Miami Dolphins tattoo on his upper thigh.
I think one of his little cousins did that. Huge
fan of Lynn Bowden and his self-tattooing.
Oh, he do that his lungs?
Yeah. Yeah, he
Nice.
tattooed his own leg.
Oh boy. You know what, dude? The four of us, none of us try to go play NFL football.
I'm not going to give myself a tattoo either.
Admit when you're exactly. Admit when you're not a professional at something and go get a professional to do it.
Yeah. He's probably going to get it touched up, is what the article I read said.
Okay.
But
no,
he did it himself,
let it be a reminder for what you've done.
With a wireless tattoo gun.
Whoa.
Bluetooth capable.
Ooh.
Goodness gracious.
$4,000, Amazon.com. So the reason for putting these guys this high for me was the fact that somehow they almost made the playoffs.
Yeah.
With Tua and Fitzmagic having a great game and then a toilet nightmare and then another great game and another toilet nightmare. He's not there anymore to pick up the pieces, but somehow they managed to get there. And I think they've got the truth at the head coaching position.
Agreed. Yeah. They are not going
so
to finish last in that division.
No.
This might be a little high. I was a little uncomfortable doing this. I feel like this is a little bit high for them, but if there's a team whose defense can cover up for some uncertainty on offense, I think it's what these guys are able to do, especially with Capri wearing Jalen Phillips down there coming off the ends now, adding Javon Holland in the secondary and Jason McCourty coming over from New England.
Yeah, real men wear capris.
Real men wear capris.
Yep.
Number
I don't mind
13.
that rank at all. They've come a
No,
long
I don't
way.
either. I think that's pretty safe. 13, San Francisco 49ers. Jimmy G, Super Bowl participant. Trey Lance can learn or have an easy ride, handing off the ball and dumping to Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk. Or he could just sit on the bench for 3 years, is what Jed York said on a national talk radio show this year. Yeah, this week. Yeah, Jed York said, we drafted him. He might not play for 2 years. We'll see. They have to keep their running back room healthy. They were decimated last year with injuries. They did retool their offensive line, and they do have those weapons in Samuel, Kittle, and Ayuk. Defense not quite as deep anywhere on that field. Still very good. They did re-sign Jason Verrett. They need that shallow front seven to stay healthy. I like where you've got them positioned here, the 49ers at 13.
This one I was still a little uncomfortable with because they were not very good last year. That said, Jimmy G didn't play very much. And hopefully I'm banking on this team getting back to where Jimmy G doesn't really have to do anything.
Yeah.
Unless he's playing the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Other than that, he doesn't really have to do anything. And this team can just sort of back its way into the playoffs. What do you guys think, Callum?
I'm not sure why they drafted Trey Lance, because they had their quarterback of the future and CJ Beathard.
Oh, buddy, he needs another slide. I'll make sure to get at him in the next one.
Callum, your thoughts, please. Get me off this.
I thought Aaron Banks was a good pick to retool that offensive line. I think, whether Trey Lance or whether it's going to be Jimmy G or Trey Lance, we'll have to see. But I think they did suffer from a bit of an injury crisis last year, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I think, like you guys have said, like Jimmy G's brought this team to a Super Bowl, so you've got them where I am slightly hesitant on George Kittle's injury history. I think obviously he's one of the best tight ends in the league on his day, but if you've got to keep them running backs healthy as well. Like there seems to be something in the water over there in San Fran that all the running backs just seem to be going down over the past few years. So
we think, Callum, that they picked up the Tyrod Taylor's doctor from a year ago.
Yeah.
It might be.
If they have an
and it's still
injury,
going.
just takes them out back behind the barn and shoots them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we think it was actually a veterinarian that they had work on Tyrod.
And they're still going. Jeff Wilson's going to miss the early part of the season, torn meniscus.
God.
Jeff Wilson Jr.
Callum, Colt, Trey Sermon. Talk to me about Trey Sermon. What are the implications of him being drafted on this team for him and for the rest of that unfortunate backfield?
I love Trey Sermon. You guys hold the fort down while I go pee real quick.
Go pee, buddy.
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, I don't want to bring this back to the Eagles all the time, but I think it's sort of similar where, you know, I think in today's game, especially with the way it's going on the offensive side of the ball, I think teams are just, you know, running players into the ground, you know, for a year or so and then dumping them off. So I think if you can have a, you know, healthy group of competitive running backs, I think, you know, it never hurts competition or anything. I think, you know, gone are the days where you just have, you know, one or two elite guys, and now it's sort of it seems to be becoming a bit of a, you know, running back overload in terms of, you know, loading the room. We've seen it with the Eagles and other teams as well. So yeah, I don't mind the Trey Sermon pick. I think it was a good pick. Like I said, I don't think it's going to hurt them having too many. You know, if anything, it's going to, you know, evolve their offense and make it more dynamic in the long run.
Yeah.
Colt,
I think
what are the fantasy implications here, bud?
It's going to be tough to predict, but hell, AJ, we could probably put you in pads and you'd go for 102 tugs in Shanahan's offense, man. His system produces running backs, but it's hard to know who, when. The way it looks now, granted, we have a long ways to go to kickoff. Jeff Wilson Jr. is having the meniscus surgery. His timeline is 4 to 6 months. I would lean a little more on the latter. So thus, you know, the depth chart moves. I still think Mostert's the guy starting the year, but it's only a matter of time before he goes down. He hasn't been able to handle the workload yet. He's a great player and he's really fast. So let's say and there's Wayne Gallman, who they paid decent money to the Giants. So I'm thinking Mostert. I think Sermon is going to ascend sooner than later.
Trey Sermon was not an injury issue at Oklahoma, and he wasn't an injury issue at Ohio State. He doesn't have that history, and he has history of production at both schools.
Thank you, Ryan. That's what I'm getting at. So I'm looking at it like Mostert goes down, insert Sermon, Gallman's the depth piece. And then they also took Elijah Mitchell in the 6th round. And I don't know. I think just with Wilson missing time, it's clearing things up a little bit already. I'm definitely looking to take Trey Sermon in drafts late and be patient with him. It's not going to happen right away. Mid-season, I think he'll be seeing some very meaningful snaps.
Last one here, Ryan. Can this defense finish top 10?
If they're healthy, yes. Do I trust them to stay healthy? I don't. I think, though, they will finish outside of the top 10 without Robert Saleh back there to do anything about it as well.
Yep.
Good point.
My thought exactly without him back there. I think if this defense does stay top 10, I think this is a good place for them.
Yeah.
Given that they don't sustain any catastrophic injuries on offense like they did, they can afford a few.
Yeah.
But if the defense stays top 10, I think that'll solidify this and potentially maybe even take them a little higher.
Yeah.
Feels great, baby.
Yeah. Number 12, the Pittsburgh Feelers. All in on Big Ben. Let's see how that works out for him. Alex Highsmith replacing Bud Dupree. Dupree, maybe a better name than player, still very good. How much will the healthy Devin Bush help? Probably a lot. Their cornerback room is slim. Skill positions, extreme potential. Love to drop footballs. Offensive line is the big question mark. Instead of helping the offensive line, they drafted a running back to run into 8 defenders at the same time. The team was 11-0 to start out the year last season, and then the injury bug caught them, and they were terrible at the end. Boys, is 12 high, low, in the middle? I think this is maybe a little bit of a silver lining, kind of rose-colored glasses here, I believe.
Yeah, that's it.
So that team was hit harder than any team I've ever seen, especially up the middle on the defense. They were down to just grabbing fans out of the first row to play inside linebacker. They were on like
some thick fans in Pittsburgh, though.
Yeah, well, it's Pittsburgh.
Needy people.
That's Pennsylvania. It's the media state. So I think Vince Williams is coming back. Their defensive line is all back. They managed to re-sign Alualu. They've still got Minkah Fitzpatrick back there. The top corners are back. They did lose their amazing nickel corner and a little bit of depth there. As I've gone through the offensive line, if you look at who they lost, there's a lot of age and ineffective play that was already occurring. And sort of my thought with this is, what is the worst that can happen? The running game sucked last year and they were 11-0. Big Ben, I don't know if I think he's already dropped off. And they were 11-0. I think he already reached the point where he's no longer that great of a quarterback. And I think it happened last year and the injury the year before. And again, still 11-0. They're getting back what could end up being one of their best defensive players. They added an extremely talented running back. They did add an interior piece on the offensive line who looks like he's going to start day one. And they added another tight end who doesn't like to drop the ball.
Yeah, I was just going to mention Pat Freiermuth as well, because I watched a bit of Penn State, and he's got the physicality, the size, the route running, and strong hands, as you mentioned. So I think he can definitely improve that offense. And obviously Najee Harris as well, who just comes straight in and slot in as running back one. So I definitely think, obviously Roethlisberger is not going to be able to, clink it down the field much, but I think Najee Harris is going to instantly upgrade them as well. And like you said, I think I do worry about the cornerback depth. I know Steven Nelson's a free agent. I wanted the Eagles to actually pick him up because I think that would be a decent addition for the Eagles. Are pretty stranded at outside corner as well. So, but like you said, I mean, this team was 11-0, so you never know what could happen with this team.
I'm afraid this team is going to be similar to last year's team that started hot and won some games they probably should not have won, and then the bottom drops out. When they were 11-0 last year, AJ was on the record saying they're the worst 11-0 team he had ever seen. Excellent. I did not disagree. This is a team, and it is well coached enough with Mike Tomlin that they can start 6-0, 7-0, 8-0, and I'm afraid the bottom's going to fall out sooner than it did last year, but it's still going to fall.
I agree with that. And will it fall harder? Like, who's behind Big Ben if he goes down week 9?
Oh, don't worry about that.
Mason Rudolph.
That's what I thought.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Don't forget Dwayne Haskins.
Yeah, I did.
That's right.
No, it doesn't matter. They're fucked.
Oh yeah, pretty much.
I'm on record saying this team will draft a first-round quarterback next year, and it could be
if there are any left.
If there are any left, and it could be where they don't have to trade up. So this team could be as bad. If injury hits, God help them, they could be in the 20s. If the things come together here and that defense plays as well as it did last year, sky's the limit. Minus maybe I don't think they get further up than like the top 6, top 7. That's being pretty generous. This is also extremely uncomfortable. The middle 10 for these rankings were really tough.
I think they're the third best team in that division.
They very well could be.
Agreed.
Yeah.
They very well could be.
That's a tough division. It is. It is just tough.
And a tougher division.
Yes, the NFC West. Number 11, the Arizona Cardinals. Zaven Collins, their first-round draft pick, out of Hominy, Oklahoma. Played 3 years for the Golden Hurricane. Great player, immediately makes the defense better. A lot of investment in a low-value position. They did get Rodney Hudson in the yard sale that was the Las Vegas Raiders. Rondale Moore was their second-round pick. JJ fucking Watt on the downside of his career, but an old JJ Watt is, when healthy, still better than most.
Then a 23-year-old Zach Allen. Go on.
Yeah, Malcolm Butler came over from the Titans. They have to figure out a way to keep number one on his feet. And this is a do or die year for Cliff Kingsbury. We'll see what happens with the Cardinals.
This is another tough one. This could have gone so many different ways.
This team could stink.
This team could really, really suck. I do think that J.J. Watt and Zaven Collins, despite Collins not being what I consider to be a great value, especially because they're going to put him as an inside linebacker, which I think is probably he's going to move around a fair amount. I think that might be just some offseason bullshit talk on the part of the Cardinals coaching staff. But no matter where he plays, that defense gets better.
Yeah, I agree.
That could be enough to put this defense, who, by the way, was fantastic the first half of the season, was among the best statistically in football during the first half of the season. The key is the last one, though. Just keep Kyler upright. Callum?
Yeah, I wasn't too convinced about their overall defensive play last year, and I think their corners are particularly, depleted. I think, like you said, Kyler Murray is on his day, because he has that dual threat abilities. He's, for me, probably a top 5 QB when healthy. I think you obviously going to be prioritizing in the early first round of fantasy this year. I think for people, adding AJ Green and Rondale Moore as well. So I think, you've obviously got DeAndre Hopkins as well. So I think I am quite a big Kyler Murray fan, but at the end of the day, you've got to keep him upright.
Stop it, Ryan. Let the man talk. Ryan, go ahead. Say whatever.
I got a chance to watch Kyler when he was at Oklahoma too, and my God, that dude did things on a football field that I have never seen a human being do. He's won everywhere he went. He was 42-0 as a high school player in Texas. He was recently named the best high school football player in the history of Texas high school football, which is an illustrious list of humans.
Yeah.
Won a Heisman Trophy doing things that nobody else had ever done. If you look at his numbers, his passing numbers are good, but not, Hall of Fame worthy. But he's so productive because of the threat that he brings with his feet. When he scampers off and eludes pressure, excuse me, and somehow wiggles his way and steps out of bounds, it's 9 yards. And he is just efficient and productive, and I'm excited to see what he does in year 3.
I think as well, that's one of the reasons that I like him so much is that, he doesn't seem to panic. He doesn't seem to, immediately, scramble. He does take his time, and I think he is a good passer. He's not obviously at that quite elite level yet, but I think, if you compare him to someone like Jalen Hurts, who people argued that he did scramble a bit too quickly last year, and that's why his completion percentage wasn't, up to scratch, to be honest. But he, like you said, he's so elusive. He's so hard to sack, and he's such a productive QB, and a big fan. Yeah.
Ryan, did you like that he said up to scratch?
I did quite a bit.
Well done, Cal. What are the fantasy implications of guys like Christian Kirk and Rondale Moore and Max Williams? Most importantly, though, Chase Edmonds.
Okay. I think Christian Kirk is on the back burner. I think he's had a couple years. He's flashed at times, but with the addition of Rondale Moore, I think he usurps Kirk on the depth chart. I feel like the Cards, they were pretty splashy in free agency. Their draft was pretty meat and potatoes. Chase Edmonds, us in the fantasy community, we all want to see him get this workload because he's such a good receiving back. But I think there was one, if not two games last year where when Kenny Drake, Kenny Drake was out, he just didn't do it. I mean, he got like 20 carries and just didn't really look that good. So he may be best served as a third down back, but still incredibly efficient, incredibly dynamic. I honestly think James Conner is going to lead the backfield and could be a low-key, low-value steal in the draft. I'm not excited about James Conner. I'm not going to be taking him. I wouldn't doubt if he has some viability early in the season.
He was top 5 in the league last year for yards after contact, except he was getting hit 4 yards into the backfield.
Right. So I think James Conner, he's a pretty deep sleeper that people are just off right now. I'm still kind of off him too, but I mean, if he's available in the later rounds, like, may as well.
Well, you just look at what Villanueva and Marquise Pouncey were doing per sites like Pro Football Focus as run blockers, and they were atrocious. I think there is hope for James Conner. He's not an amazing back. I wouldn't even call him a great back. I think he can be a good back, and if Edmonds doesn't get his shit together, I think James Conner may be getting the bulk of the carries there eventually.
Yeah, I think that's how they're going to open the year. I think Conner is going to be the lead guy, and Edmonds is going to be used in the way he always has been. I could be wrong, but that's just some things I've been listening to. That's kind of the beat. I love Kyler, man, this year at that year 3 with adding AJ Green, Rondale Moore. I mean, he's got everything around him to succeed, and he's my QB3.
Kingsbury is pulling out all of the bells and whistles in that offense this year, because if he doesn't, he's going to get fired.
Out.
Exactly.
What about before we swap here? I think we all agree got to keep Kyler upright. The corners are a question. Last thing, Colt, AJ Green. What about that?
I think he's kind of done. Not a bad veteran receiver, locker room presence. Veteran receiver for Kyler, 50-50 balls, things like that. I'm not looking to draft him. I'm not expecting a lot from him. But I think it's a nice depth piece. See if he has anything left in the tank.
Arizona Heat will loosen up those old joints.
Yeah.
I just realized when I was talking about fantasy, I mentioned Kyler Murray going in round 1. That is not a good idea taking it. From what I've learned anyway.
I thought you were talking about a 2 QB league or something. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I just replayed that in my head. I'm like, what the fuck was I on about?
Oh, man.
Blame the Whiskies, boys.
Self-correcting.
The Cleveland Brownies at number 10. Their wide receivers have to stay healthy if OBJ is any semblance of what he used to be. And if he and Baker can get on the right page, we'll see how that happens. Baker has a tendency to try and force him to the football. On the play where he tore his ACL last year, it was a forced throw interception. Their defense may be the best defense on paper, at least their starting 11 in the NFL with Myles Garrett down there. They added some linebacker help. They also added a ton of secondary help. And this is another player that needs to really step up in year 4 for Baker Mayfield. The Browns, all sorts of potential. 10 is about middle of where they could wind up. They could be a top 6 team if everything works out for them.
Yeah, Ryan, tell us your feelings about Baker.
I'm a big Baker guy as well. I'm a big Baker guy. I love his moxie. I love his presence in the locker room. Is he a great quarterback? He's fine. He throws fastballs. There is no let up on his arm. Love the presence he has. Love his commercials. Love the guy.
Great swagger.
Yeah. All swagger for days. holding his nuts against the Kansas Jayhawks. Saying,
for him.
suck my Sooners. I was gonna dick.
I wish I could see some of them for
We basically ask Ryan and Colt the same questions almost every week.
Tell us about this Sooner quarterback.
Ryan, tell us about this Sooner quarterback. Do you still love Jalen Hurts? Yeah. Do you still love Baker Mayfield? Sure. Great.
Check.
Any other Sooners? Yeah. You love them? Cool. Great. Where did Ryan Fitzpatrick go to school?
I think he went to Harvard.
I think he went to Harvard. Callum, what do you see here? Is this too low or too high?
No, I think this is about right, to be honest. I think that Greg Newsom pick was a good pick because their corners needed addressing. I think JOK at linebacker as well was an absolute steal. Like, I don't know how he fell to the Browns. At the start of the second, I thought the Eagles were going to take him to address them linebacker needs, but I think they picked up. They had a good draft, to be honest. I think they gave Mayfield a deep threat with what's the guy called Schwartz?
Yep, the Schwartz be with you.
Yeah, wasn't he like ranked as one of the fastest guys in the draft?
He was a fast, human.
He ran a 10-100, which is like almost Olympic speed.
Absurd. Yeah.
That's quick.
Yeah, so I think this is about right. I think they're a solid team. I'm not as high on Baker Mayfield as maybe some of you guys, but
one of us at least.
Don't lump us in with him. So this is the best offensive line in football. And best stable
easily.
Running backs in the game. I think we've seen that both Chubb and Hunt, in a pinch, Kareem Hunt can be counted on as RB1 if you're having a bad week, and if you're having a great week, he's RB2.
Yep. Yeah.
So what else is there here, Colt, on the fantasy side?
I'm really curious about Beckham because I've been teetering this offseason whether he's got it left or not. And now,
I don't
currently,
think he's worth it.
I don't either. Currently, where I sit, I don't think Beckham can recapture that form. It's too tall of a task. And honestly, I don't want to see Baker forcing him the ball. Like, Beckham is the epitome of a diva receiver. Hopefully, as he's gotten a little older, a little more sage, a little more humble, he can, acclimate to the team, and can Stefanski like corral him and just, I don't know. It's just Jarvis Landry, all reliable. He's a good player.
He's going to get you a touchdown pass or two as well.
Exactly.
He can sling it lefty.
Yeah, he does have a nice left toss there. He doesn't excite me a ton. I mean, he's a nice, stable wide receiver too, I would say. He had some really good games with Beckham out last year too, but Donovan Peoples-Jones, he showed some flashes last year. And the whole Chubb-Hunt dynamic, I mean, they can coexist. I do believe Kareem Hunt still has standalone value. I'm looking for Chubb all over the place in fantasy this year, because right now I think his current ADP is like second round or something, and people are taking Johnny Taylor in the first round. Give me Chubb in the second all day.
Yep.
He's a great player behind no doubt the best offensive line in the game. I think the Browns win the division this year. I think they are the team to beat.
Those are nice cajones you have, Colt.
I don't disagree. I really don't.
Yeah, honestly,
those are hefty.
I'm a big Browns believer this year, man. The Stefanski at the helm too, it changes so much. I mean, just how far they came in one season. I think their ceiling is top 5 in rankings.
And I agree. And Baker Mayfield, throughout his history as a football player, when it's put up or shut up time, he has generally put up.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's time.
He has put up. Now, I will say this reminds me a little bit of the Browns team 2 years ago, where they looked really good on paper.
You're right.
They had no offensive line, and then they fixed that, and that fixed the offense for the most part, especially the run game, as good as it got.
Freddie Kitchens.
Minus Freddie
Yeah,
Kitchens.
exactly. That's the difference.
That defensive line has almost nothing up the middle. Sheldon Richardson is gone. They're starting, I think, Andrew Billings, Malik Jackson, Jordan Elliott. If you haven't heard of these names, that's fine. You can probably still do a football podcast because a lot of people haven't heard of them either. It's just, it reminds me of having that weakness in the center of the offense, and now it's the center of the defense. But I think there's too much around this team for that to keep them out of the top 10.
Ton of talent. Yep. Number 9, the Tennessee Titans. No Jonnu Smith, no Corey Davis, no Adam Humphries. Who's going to catch the football? The defense got better because it couldn't get worse. Yeah.
Yeah, I ran out of time. Figure it out.
Yeah, I don't love this spot for this. I think this is ceiling for the Titans. I think this is as good as they can be. Their defense is not significantly better. They were absolute trash last year. I think the bigger loss, not even Jonnu Smith or Corey Davis or Adam Humphries, their biggest loss is Arthur Smith.
Yeah, totally agree.
So I am withholding judgment from the Tennessee Titans until I see how they look in the first 6 weeks of the season.
I'm also not really inspired by that Caleb Farley pick. I think the talent's there, but that injury does scare me a bit.
Backs are terrifying.
I mean, AJ Brown's going to get a ton of targets this year because Corey Davis leaving and Jonnu Smith, but I'm not really massive on Tannehill, to be honest. I think a lot of people have been questioning whether Derrick Henry can achieve those heights again, and I think he's just a special guy. Like he's built differently. I think if there's anyone you can bet on to be a top 3 running back in the league, it's him. Just his size and his frame, and I think he doesn't get hit. He hits people, doesn't he? So
or throws them down.
Yeah. Or ignores them entirely. And this ranking was based entirely on the fact that I think Derrick Henry has one more year of solid
excellence.
Production, of excellence. Yeah. And I am a Tannehill believer. I think, I don't know what got into him, but I think he will recreate that magic. This is absolutely ceiling territory for me. And this was one of the toughest teams to place. Like I said, the middle 10 were impossible. And I know this is 9, but I don't care.
Yeah, I had them at 11. So I didn't know where to put them either because that defense was so bad in the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
Granted, it was Lamar Jackson, and he does that to lots of people. But I just don't know right now. I just don't know.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions too. I really want to see it, but I think to your point, Ryan, the Arthur Smith, man, like that's a bigger loss than the skill position guys that they had. Do they sign Julio? Because what I'm hearing is
that'll make a big difference.
It'll make a big difference. Yeah. And I'm all in on AJ Brown. I was last year. I had him in a couple leagues. Won a championship with him. And even if Julio comes, I think he's still safe. I think he's still the guy.
Oh yeah.
Julio is going to help him, I think, in taking some attention away.
I think at that point they have 2 guys.
Yeah, they do, 1A, 1B. But I still think AJ will be the more dominant of the 2.
Always.
I would love to see nice. I would love to see them take Julio on though, because he did say he wants to win. I think the Titans are in a position to win. I think they could maybe take that division. Indy's going to be a tough task.
That one's very up for grabs.
Yeah, it's very up for grabs. And the other thing is we're looking at that. We're looking at the trenches here. Taylor Lewan is still as good as it gets.
True.
Saffold, Jones, Davis, outside of a handful of teams, including the Browns, it doesn't really get any better than that. They also drafted Dylan Raduns. Am I saying that right?
Radens.
Sure, whatever. They drafted him as well, and he seems to be a solid player. Also, they were Jack Conklin-less last year, and Derrick Henry didn't seem to give a shit. So I don't know if it matters who plays right tackle for them. I think that offensive line is good enough to – that's why they're here. I think that offensive line is good enough to buoy them, and that defense can't get any worse. Let's be real.
They cannot. Number 8, the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams. Yeah. AJ ran out of time to finish this slide as well. They picked up Matthew Stafford, obviously, and gave up the rest of their first-round picks for the foreseeable future, potentially until 2030 is the next time the Rams will have a first-round pick. One of the more talented teams at the very top in the National Football League, making a run. They see a window of opportunity. They're trying to take it. I think it's a massive upgrade at the quarterback position between Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford. They do have the weapons out there, but Cooper Kupp is still very good. Their offensive line,
Deshaun Jackson,
they're just old. Deshaun Jackson is basically a dead person out there, running around very quickly.
Fastest dead guy I've ever seen.
Yeah,
yes,
they'll pull a hammy week 2.
Yeah, very quick, very fragile dead person running around. Deshaun Jackson. They do have the best player in football in Aaron Donald, though, and Jalen Ramsey, potentially the best cornerback in football, long and rangy, and will fuck you up. Whatever chance.
He can hit. Oh yeah.
So they lost John Johnson. They lost Michael Brockers. Those are big concerns for me. The offense, I think, will be fine, and I think significantly better. We're all big Matty Snapback fans. We think it's going to get a lot better there. And if that defense takes a step back, fucking great. They were the best statistically in the game last year. So if they take a handful of steps back, maybe drop to 8th or 9th, I think this team is still
good enough.
Last year. Yeah,
still good enough.
So Colt, how do you sort out the and Callum, how do you sort out the wide receiver room and including tight end Tyler Higbee, and then after that, Cam Akers? What does he mean to you?
I think I'm a big Robert Woods fan. I think he's a great. He's always a bit of an underrated fantasy player, and I think he'll get a ton of targets this year. Cooper Kupp as well, obviously, good talent, and then you've got Cam Akers, who I think will be really impressive this year. And I think Matthew Stafford is obviously an instant upgrade for them over Jared Goff, and it's quite funny to think about the fact that the Rams got to the Super Bowl a couple of years ago with Jared Goff at the helm. So Stafford instantly makes them better, and I am a bit of a fan of the Rams. Whenever the Eagles aren't playing, I do tend to look towards them. I love watching them play. I think obviously, like you guys said, their defense is incredible. Even if they do take a few steps back, they'll still be one of the teams contending. I think they can make a Super Bowl run. I think, I'm a big fan.
How do we feel about Michael Brockers talking shit about Jared Goff after he left, and then immediately getting traded to the Detroit Lions to once again play with Jared Goff?
We need some wins. It's been a rough year, and that's one of the wins.
As far as fantasy goes for me, yeah, Callum, you hit it nail on the head, man. Bobby Trees, forever undervalued. That dude is borderline wide receiver 1 the past couple of years. I mean, it's really tough for me to differentiate between Kupp and Woods this year with Stafford, not having seen it. I'm likely going to draft the one who's going to go later. I did see some footage yesterday via the Instagrams of Matty Snapback tossing fades to Cooper Kupp in the end zone for one-handed grabs. And, I thought to myself, I bet these guys are like best friends already. I could picture them just shooting down to Cabo, Sammy Hagar, drinking margs, grilling out.
Playing a little golf.
Yeah, exactly. I call it a hunch. I'm thinking Kupp. Kupp, but
I think
Matty
Kupp's probably
Snapback,
a better golfer than Matt Stafford.
Yeah.
A little more athletic.
My guess is, Matty Snapback upgrade all day.
I bet
I
Bobby
love.
Trees is better than Matt Stafford.
I think Bobby Trees is a phenomenal nickname.
Yeah. Oh man, I love it too. So Cam Akers, I'm really high on him too. However, I've been looking at some strength of schedule blueprints that certain people that I follow have been putting out, and the Rams do have a very tough opening slate of games against defenses against the run. So I like to look at things like that. If I'm in between a player in the draft and like this guy has like brick shit houses he's running against the first 4 weeks, I might pivot a little bit.
DeBrickashaw Ferguson.
DeBrickashaw, yeah.
Actually brick shit house.
So that offensive line, is this the year we see breakdown? Andrew Whitworth is 1,000 years old. And is still one of the best left tackles in the game. They did lose their center, and now Brian Allen is stepping into the spot. Edwards is relatively new. Corbett Havenstein is a stalwart, great right tackle. Is this the year that falls off? And then secondly, and this is for Callum and Colt, let's go with Ryan and say Jackson pulls a hammy immediately on his way to the stadium. Van Jefferson, Tutu Atwell. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean it's tough. Yeah, I think Deshaun Jackson is another injury waiting to happen. He was never fully fit ever at the Eagles. Really, I think the main thing is just keeping Stafford up. I think them injuries that he suffered at the Lions really hurt his chances. I think he is a bit of an underrated player in general. I think someone sent me the other day. Someone was talking about some of the highlight reels that he was posting a couple of years ago, and he was throwing like Mahomes type sort of side slings or whatever you want to call them. And I think he does go under the radar a bit, and like I mentioned earlier, I think he's an instant upgrade. I do like that offense though, and I think Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, I like Cam Akers. I think it's good. I think it's good.
Well, what about Tutu Atwell, Van Jefferson?
That's a tough split because I feel like last year, why did they draft Van Jefferson? They barely even used him. Now with Josh Reynolds,
Tutu Atwell, he weighs less than my shoes.
Exactly, 155. He's like the lightest draft pick since 2006 or something, I think. However, he's lightning fast, right? So I'm wondering if McVay can use him all over the field, kind of like a Tavon Austin with Jeff Fisher. Only McVay is brilliant compared to Jeff Fisher.
Top 10, wasting a first-round draft pick. Sorry, Ryan. I know he's great in college.
He was a great college player.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I think Van Jefferson really has a chance to pop. He's definitely on my deep sleeper radar. Tutu Atwell, not as much. I'd like to see it ways they're going to use him.
I like it. Number 7. This is a very optimistic point of view for the New Orleans Saints.
It is,
in my estimation. Colt, I'm going to leave this one to you.
Okay. We still don't know who the quarterback is. Word is Peyton says they're going to lean heavily on the running backs. Well, no shit. I mean, he's leaned pretty heavily on the running backs the last couple of years. I mean, it's a nice 1-2 punch with Latavius and Kamara, as it was when it was Ingram and Kamara. And I don't think they ever want Kamara to be that 20 carry a game guy. I think he can, but he will break down. And he's a finesse runner. He's beautiful to watch him play. He's such a good player. I kind of lean the side that I kind of waver on this one too. Is it Taysom? Is it Jameis? I kind of lean on the fact that it's Taysom. Peyton just loves that dude. But also, if it's Winston, he gets to do all his cute little trick plays with his stepson, Taysom Hill. So I don't know. I'm a little torn. The defense is definitely taking some hits. Lost some key players. Janoris Jenkins in the secondary. Marshawn Lattimore is still kind of up in the air. What's going on with him? Demario Davis, one of the best linebackers in the game. We also lost, Trey Hendrickson to the Bengals?
Yep.
We still got Davenport.
I
They've
do
still
like,
Jordan.
got Jordan. They've still got
Still got
Davenport.
Jordan.
They've still
Yeah.
got Onyemata. They've still got Davis.
Okay.
They've still got Jenkins, Marcus Williams, who was statistically incredible, not last season, but the season before. Like you said, Lattimore is a little bit up in the air. Some issues at corner. They've sort of retooled the rest of the linebacking core. We all know about the skill positions and certain places lack thereof. Again, I want to highlight the offensive line. This offensive line is amazing. This is a top 5, some maybe top 10 if you're pessimistic. I say at least top 5 for me. It's an amazing left and right tackle. It doesn't really get much better. They've got youth on the inside there. I think that means something. Like you said, this team has been leaning running back for years. And it didn't really matter what Drew Brees did as much.
Right.
And I think Taysom Hill gives you Drew Brees plus legs. Probably not maybe not the moxie quite yet. But Drew Brees hasn't been Drew Brees for a couple of years.
Right.
Callum,
I think Jameis with LASIK is dangerous. A Jameis
Yeah.
that can see.
Yeah.
Jamesick.
Yeah, Jamesick, he once threw 30-something touchdown passes. Taysom Hill is a very good college quarterback. He is not an NFL quarterback for the long term.
I agree.
I don't like Taysom Hill.
He's a football player. He's a football player. He's not a great quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I gotta say, I like the addition of Pete Werner at linebacker from Ohio State. I do think they suffered from a lot of, like you guys have mentioned, a lot of cap issues, and a lot of guys had to be traded or whatever. So I think they did lose a couple of key pieces. I think 7, looking at it, is probably their ceiling. I don't really. At the end of the day, I think when I try to evaluate teams, like I look at the quarterback position just to just trying to evaluate him. I just don't see any inspiring choices between Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill. So I think
don't worry, bud. You've got Ian Book.
Well, I mean, if they're gonna run the ball all the time with Kamara and Latavius Murray, then surely, even with a good offensive line, surely it's going to get a bit predictable sometimes. So I think, I mean, like you said though, AJ, like Drew Brees, has not been peak Drew Brees for a long time, and I think, I don't know. I don't think the Saints are going to be very good, to be honest.
I don't think
These guys
so
are
either.
tough. These guys are really tough.
Sean Payton's a phenomenal coach. Smoke and mirrors can only get you so far. They dug themselves a grave with the salary cap, now they have to lie in it. I don't think 7 is a feasible spot to put them.
That defense as well. I named a lot of Pro Bowl and all pro caliber players, and there is jack shit behind them. Thank God. I mean, we poo-pooed Peyton Turner. There's nothing behind him save one decent piece that we are not going to pronounce right now, and you'll figure that out why later, Callum. But the rest of that defense, the second string is rough. And then last thing here, what do we think about anything opposite Mike Thomas? Yeah, Ryan is holding his hands up. That sounds about right.
I mean, Traquan Smith.
Yeah.
He could. I think if it's Jameis, I think Traquan, he could be in for a sneaky big year. I don't think he's a bad player. I think he's just kind of been underutilized. I mean, outside of Mike Thomas, there is no consistent receiver with the Saints. There isn't a solidified number 2. There's a lot of buzz around Adam Troutman right now at tight end. He's a pretty good player. I buy into that. I just don't know.
I would buy into that because of just a sheer lack of other options.
Exactly. Yeah. by default. And especially if it's Jameis too. He threw to tight ends a lot in Tampa. Could have been a scheme thing, could have been a Jameis thing. I don't know, but personally, I think I'd rather see Jameis at quarterback as a Saints fan than Taysom. Leave some of the trickery and some of the more collegiate level stuff to Taysom. and let Jameis just sling it, man. He did get the eye surgery.
He's really good, dude. He throws a lot of picks, but he can throw a lot of touchdowns too.
Right. I mean, the offense is going to be more exciting, in my opinion, with Jameis. And
If you
talking
recall,
to
while not being able to see, he did win a national championship, and I don't think the FYI, if we've all forgotten that.
And a Heisman Trophy.
Yep. Just quick reminder. I was talking to a coworker at work today. He's a big Saints fan, and I said, "Who's it going to be, man? Jameis or Taysom?" He said, "Man, I think it's Taysom." He said, "I think Jameis has solidified himself as a backup because his knock was his weight. Like, he doesn't take care of his body, doesn't stay in football shape enough to be a QB1." And I was like, okay.
He probably had Jamarcus Russell's dietitian, Ryan.
Yeah. Number 6, Seattle Seahawks. I think this is also pretty rosy for the Seahawks. This is a stretch, 6, 7, 8, 9 that I'm not super sure about. I think we're leaning a little NFC heavy right now. I think the Browns are probably going to be in this spot when it's all
Agreed.
said and done.
Yeah.
The Seahawks didn't do a whole lot to address the offensive line that Russell Wilson was super upset about. Their wide receiving options are fantastic with DK Metcalf. Tyler Lockett's still there. Their defense hasn't been what they used to be for the last 5 years. To be really honest, their defense was atrocious to begin the year last year. They did add a couple of pieces, if I do recall, throughout the offseason. I'm not sure. The Seahawks will go as Russell Wilson goes, and I don't think Russell's as good as Russell thinks he is.
That's where we sort of disagree there, fellas. I do think Russell Wilson is that good, and I think that, I mean, we all had him. I think the world had him MVP through like 8-10 games because he was damn near perfect.
Yeah,
Lights
he
out.
was. But he had to be perfect for them to win.
He did. And to your point about the offensive line, they did add Gabe Jackson, who I don't know if you know, is like 7 feet tall and 500 pounds of like pretty decent humanity.
Yeah.
But you're right. They didn't address that offensive line outside of that. They did draft Stone Forsythe, the tackle from Florida, who was kind of a late riser, still made it to them in the 7th round. And he's their backup left tackle right now. So the defense, I mean, look, if Jamal Adams can be Jamal Adams again, that makes up for a lot of shit in the backfield, in the defensive backfield. If Jordan Brooks, last year's 1st round pick, can be what they imagined, drafting a very poor position that early, your linebacking core is immediately better. Also Bobby Wagner. But you're right, Ryan, that defensive front, that front 4 is concerning. What does Carlos Dunlap have left? I don't know. Poona Ford, Kerry Hyder, are these guys you want starting on your defensive line? I don't know, but like you said, if this goes as Russell Wilson goes, that's why they're this high. Callum, what do you think?
Yeah, I think something which is quite interesting that I saw was Pete Carroll admitting that he wanted to run the ball more next season. I do think their receiving core is genuinely quite good. I think DK Metcalf's only going to get better as the years go. I think he's an unbelievable talent.
He's an alien.
Yeah, he's absolute freak of. Yeah, I think when I look at that, I'm not totally inspired by Chris Carson. Or I know Russell Wilson has got that scrambling ability, but again, like as a leader, as a guy who you want to lead a group of men, like rumored comments of him basically fucking over his whole offensive line by slating him. He's not something that you want to hear if you're a Seahawks fan. I think as well, KJ Wright going into free agency, I believe. So yeah, I mean Jamal Adams is obviously an unbelievable talent, but I think personally, I think this is a bit high. I think if Russell Wilson goes off, then yeah, of course. But if we're taking this as like a holistic sort of look at their roster, I'm not convinced that they're going to be this high, to be honest.
Yeah, and with Russell Wilson, it's sort of like you said earlier, Callum. At this point in the rankings, it's hard not to look quarterback first. It's a quarterback-driven league. It's hard not to look there first and see an MVP candidate, a perennial at this point MVP candidate, and not take them over guys, teams with like the Saints, who do not have that, like the Browns, who as it stands don't have that, and the Titans, who I love Ryan Tannehill, also don't have that. And that's some of the teams that are directly behind them, which is why in these rankings they get the bump above those teams. But like you said, this is very optimistic. It's all Russell Wilson based and kind of Jamal Adams based, just turning and making a moderate, mildly talented defense into something more. Colt, what are the fantasy implications for Gerald Everett and for Tyler Lockett now being in the shadow?
Gerald Everett, I'm not too psyched about him. I mean, the Seahawks target share for their tight ends has been pretty spotty with Russ, in my opinion. Metcalf has definitely inserted himself as the alpha. Lockett's a great player too, and he's going to have a couple of those massive splash games. But I feel safe with DK. I feel like Carson is actually quite a sleeper. He's a hard runner. He gets hurt. I mean, he runs violent, and I stayed away from him last year, and he had some good games, but he also missed some time. He also got hurt. I'm a little like, I would take Lockett at the right value. I'm not going to go out of my way to get him. I'd go out of my way a little bit to get DK. I'd probably just dodge the Seahawks tight ends altogether. I know they did lose some pieces though, so Everett actually could see more meaningful snaps, a greater snap percentage than the days where they mixed in Jacob Hollister and Big Wyoming Will Dissly, fan favorite.
Big Wyoming.
Yep. And who else did they have? They had Greg Olson on the roster last year, tight end.
Yep.
So
I do want to clarify something. Sorry, go ahead.
What?
I'll clarify after.
I'm done. Yeah, that's pretty much where I landed.
Yeah.
Colt's done.
I do want to clarify. I do think Russell Wilson's very good. I don't think Russell Wilson's as good as Russell Wilson thinks he is. I think he's the second best player, the second best quarterback in that division now that Matthew Stafford's there.
Yeah. That's a hot take. That's bold.
Yeah, I love that. Highlight that.
Baltimore Ravens at number 5. I think this is very right-sized for the Baltimore Ravens. They go as Lamar Jackson goes. If he can figure out how to throw the football to the outsides of the field and down the field, they're going to beat everybody. Their defense is fine. Their offensive line is fine. They added some weapons on the outside, and they have the most athletic player in football right now playing quarterback.
Yep, we've got great weapons. We've got what may actually end up being an offensive line that doesn't take too many steps back despite losing Orlando Brown. Like Ryan said, the defense is stacked. My only question is, does that defensive line take a step back because of age with Calais Campbell, Brandon Williams, Derek Wolfe? That secondary is super deep. They retooled despite losing Matt Judon. They retooled with Jason Away, now going by Adafe Away. Respect. What are fantasy implications here, Colt and Callum, with let's highlight Rashad Bateman. There's a lot of love for him here.
I think adding, passing options for Lamar Jackson is only going to help him. I think, looking and sort of analysing the quarterbacks coming up for the fantasy draft, I'm sort of hesitant to take Lamar Jackson just because of his inconsistency. Coming from that MVP year and then to the sort of numbers he put up last year. I like that they added Rashad Bateman and they also added Sammy Watkins, although I don't think Sammy Watkins is going to be a massive difference, but I do like the addition of what was his name again? Owa, is it?
Jason Away. Yep.
Yeah.
Adafe Away.
Yeah, I think he's not a polished. He's not quite that sort of. He's a bit raw. He's not quite that polished player yet, but he has got a huge upside. So
he ran like a 3.2.
Yeah,
at 6'4", 260 pounds.
Yeah. I'm going to say as well, Tylen Wallace from Oklahoma as well. I thought was a good
Love.
pickup.
Ryan, keep your pants on, bud.
Yeah, I think he was predicted to come off the board about 50 picks earlier, so I think that was a good steal for them as well. So
Ryan, should he have gone off the board 50 picks earlier?
I think he should have been a second-round pick. Tylen Wallace, when he's right, is one of the more explosive pass catchers. He's not the fastest. He's definitely not the biggest at 5'11", but as far as catch point explosiveness, he goes up and he gets the football. He is very Steve Smith.
Love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
Love
nice
that
comp.
Love that comp.
Buffalo Bills at number 4, once again, very right-sized. They were right there last year with Josh Allen taking that. He took more than a step forward, fellas. He sprinted and triple jumped forward and turned himself into an MVP caliber player. I'm curious to see if that carries over with Brian Dable still there. Good chance it does. Stephon Diggs still on the sidelines, or running up and down the sidelines for Josh Allen out there. Cole Beasley, one of the more productive slot guys in the league. That defense is good. Secondary with Tre'Davious White. We'll see how they hold up past him. Offensive line, they kept them all together, even though Josh Allen was running for his life in the playoffs. He did it all himself, being 6'6" and stallionic is going to be the adjective that I used.
I love it.
From now on.
You're right. They did keep that O-line together. The three of us have been on record many times stating that we were not very pleased with what they did in keeping them together. They did draft Spencer Brown, who I think is underrated. That's another Oklahoma State gentleman. Big dude. And if anyone falters on that offensive line, I think that's a big sleeper in the draft. Also picked up Tommy Doyle. The defense, to Ryan's point, the secondary has 3 Pro Bowl caliber players, and then the other cornerback spot could be trouble. They re-signed some linebackers, added a lot of depth to the defensive line, especially on the edge. Does that interior let them down with Ed Oliver not being what Ed Oliver thought Ed Oliver would be? And Vernon Butler not playing much in Carolina and now starting for the Buffalo Bills. I think Josh Allen, that is the Joe Burrow of the NFL. Biggest improvement season to season from a quarterback I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I agree.
Does he continue and allow this team to transcend a roster that's very good but showed some holes in the playoffs? Callum?
I would say as well, just tied on to that, the Gregory Rousseau pick was a bit surprising for me. I know he had a bit of an injury-plagued college career, and then I think you only really had like a year worth of decent college tape, and I thought they were going to take the guy from Penn State away, but I think that Bills, if they seem to like to build in the trenches. The Bills, they love to have that depth at offensive line, like you mentioned earlier, Tommy Doyle and Spencer Brown. So I think you can keep Josh Allen, who for me, like you guys have mentioned, I think it's a pretty obvious statement to make, but tremendous upside, tremendous improvement. Incredible arm strength, and his scrambling ability is also quite underrated as well for me.
Yeah, Colt, I think we all know the fantasy implications here.
Oh yeah. Josh is going to stallion. The running backs, I'm not sure still what to make of them yet. I think Zach Moss, as we heard one of our previous guests, he mentioned that the red zone opportunities for Zach Moss could be there, which would certainly provide more value. Singletary is a good player. He's really elusive, but I'm just not really excited about the running game in Buffalo because the RB1 is Josh Stallion. And Diggs, top 3, top 4 for me going into the year. I did not expect him to change teams and be that explosive. What else was I thinking about? Oh, sleeper. Emmanuel Sanders and Gabriel Davis. I'm curious to see how that shakes out.
We've had
'Cause
some
if
guests
they-
tell us buy Gabe Davis and stop.
Exactly. Right. And that's kind of where I lean right now. I think Sanders is a nice depth piece. Way past his prime. He's overcome the Achilles injury a couple years ago. I'm looking at Gabe Davis because, I mean, if they're running 3 wide, you've got Beasley, Davis, and Diggs. So I don't know. And I hope that we see that same pass-happy Bills team from last year because they were fun to watch.
Yep. Green Bay Packers at number 3. This should have every asterisk that your fingers can type until they get tired and fall off. If Aaron Rodgers is not on this team, that number may start with a 2 and say 23. Aaron Rodgers makes that big a difference on this squad. MVP last year for a reason. He has been one of the best pure passers in the history of the National Football League. He has all the weapons out there with Devontae Adams and what's that one? What's that other guy's name?
Oh, nobody.
Yeah. They don't have anyone else.
That's what
they really don't. That's the thing is you get past Devontae Adams. There were a couple of drop balls in the end zone in the NFC Championship game that would have made the difference, and it would have been
including the
Packers
one
Chiefs.
The head coach
Equiminius
dropped.
St. Brown.
Yeah, it's a gold goer. Sorry to say.
All 3 of his hands.
Yeah. Not as big as the ball that
Devontae Adams dropped one too.
Well, Matt LaFleur dropped the biggest ball.
Yes, by kicking
Everett.
field goals. Yeah. There's so many question marks around the Packers right now. And even if Aaron Rodgers does come back, what does that locker room look like? Their defense is just okay. They do have Jair Alexander. They still have Kevin King, who got himself lit up, had the worst game of his career at the worst possible time in the NFC Championship game.
Yeah.
Tom Brady found something to pick on, and he picked it till it was raw. Poor Kevin
Bleeding.
King. God bless his soul and his family as they go forward in this difficult time.
Bless him. So Eric Stokes is there. We, like you said, Alexander is maybe the best corner in the game. That gets you something. The Smith brothers, not really brothers, coming off the edge with Gary in the wings. You've got edge pressure. You've got good safeties. You've got the best corner in the game. Kenny Clark, when he's healthy, is one of the only and possibly best nose tackles left in football. True nose tackles. The offense, I don't know if you can say it's going to be better, but that was one of the best offenses in the game. So if they take a small step back, and this is all, like Ryan said, 8 billion asterisks that Aaron Rodgers is there, and I don't even think it's worth the thought experiment to figure out where they would be without him. So, Colt, is there anyone outside of Adams, Jones, worth taking a flyer on?
Take a shot on AJ Dillon. Because what I'm thinking, what I am hoping, and I'd like to see, is that Aaron Jones, Dillon's going to cut into his carries, but I'd like to see them use Jones in the passing game a little more because he's elusive, man. And, PPR, that's all I play in, all we play in, at least half point. I mean, receptions are more valuable than carries. But I think it could hurt Aaron Jones a little bit too, because I feel like he may cede some goal line work to Thunder Thighs.
Wadzilla.
What are you saying about Amari Rodgers, Cole? What do you reckon?
Oh, that's a good point. I kind of like that. If Rodgers is there, I think Amari Rodgers could do some damage. The way they move Devontae Adams around in and out of the slot and the outside, I think Rodgers could settle into the slot. He could be a real nice weapon.
I really do like Amari Rodgers. He is a good football player. He never really had a well-defined role in the Clemson offense. Whenever he touched the ball, he was fucking electric.
Yeah. Great for bringing that up, Callum. I gotta just ask, temperature check with all of you guys. Is Rodgers in Green Bay this year?
I don't know, man. I said Brady would never leave New England. So Ryan, Callum, you take this.
I think the answer is no, and I hope the answer is no.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
That's where I stand too. I say no. I don't think he's going to play for them unless they offer
really
him
think-
$1 zillion.
I really think. Go ahead, Count. Sorry.
Sorry, no, it's all right. I just think there's too much baggage, and I think it happened with Carson as well. Once there's that line being crossed, you can't recover that. There's obviously a bit of tension between the front office, and once that's established, then I think it's hard to recover.
I think the Packers have a history of bullying players with their mystique. They have bullied people into thinking in the Packer way and what's good for the Packer franchise. Aaron Rodgers is going to say, fuck off. I just won the MVP at 37 years old. You drafted a dude to replace me like you drafted me to replace Brett Favre. I won the MVP and Brett Favre quickly declined. I want to finish my career here, and you are proving to me that you don't want me to finish my career here. So fuck off. I'm going somewhere else.
Yeah. I read a quote that he said, it was a couple of days ago, and the crux of it is basically his disdain for the organization, the front office.
His interview with Kenny Mayne was phenomenal.
Right. So it's not even as much about Jordan Love.
Well, at the end of the interview, Kenny Mayne was saying that Aaron Rodgers suggested that he get into cryptocurrency, and he's 40% down. So fuck you, Aaron Rodgers. It was a beautiful way to end Kenny Mayne's illustrious ESPN career. Number 2, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Brady versus Father Time is the only bullet point we need. They are returning 22 of 22 starters from last year's Super Bowl team. Unbelievable.
That is unbelievable.
They brought that team back.
The only thing here is not just Tom Brady, but Antonio Brown and maybe a little bit of Donovan Smith,
Ndamukong Suh.
Yeah, you've got some guys that are staring Father Time in the eyeballs, and then you've got a secondary that's getting better and has fresh eyeballs. They are in their early 20s to mid 20s. Lots of that all over the place. This was easy as shit.
Yeah, they're going to be really good again.
Yeah.
So let's compare that to this.
Ooh.
So 1 and 2, this is a debate. That was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now it's the Kansas City Chiefs. Is there a debate here?
There is. There is a debate here. Kansas City, where Tampa Bay caught lightning in a bottle at the end of the season and played lights out through the playoffs. Kansas City had devastating injuries to their offensive line, and Patrick Mahomes was running for his life in the Super Bowl. And they went out and they addressed their offensive line with fervor and a vengeance.
Yes, they did.
And even if they have a guy or two go down, they made sure that they have depth in that offensive line. And they brought back some key pieces.
Including Kyle Long from out of his coffin.
Yeah, from retirement. This team actively went out and got better, and they were 2 offensive linemen away from being the best team in football last year and winning the Super Bowl for the 2nd straight year. The Tampa Bay stood pat. Kansas City got better. And they do have the most electrifying quarterback talent we've ever seen.
In sports entertainment.
Yes.
I think there's also quite a lot of I don't know what you think about this, Colt, but there was quite a lot of hype around Clyde Edwards-Helaire in terms of fantasy last year.
I was a victim.
Me too.
Yeah, I mean he started well, and then I think I would go this way as well. I think the Chiefs with an improved offensive line. I know the Bucs brought pretty much everyone back, but I mean it's hard to bet against either of Mahomes or Brady, but I think Chiefs with a vengeance coming back with an improved offensive line. I would probably agree with this ranking as well.
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes,
and I kind of like
the only record he wants to break is 20-0. He doesn't care about the rest.
Mm-hmm.
I'm honestly thinking a lot about CEH these days as a post type sleeper because
in your bedroom time.
I was just
Oh yeah.
In what room are you thinking of CEH?
Oh, you don't want to know. But I honestly, so Me being that guy too, I kind of have a bad taste in my mouth. I drafted him 6 overall. I knew it was a risk, but I tend to not draft rookie running backs in the first round if everything is not perfect. And I felt like the system with the Chiefs was too perfect, hand selected by old Patty Mahomes. I think, all right, I'm gonna take a shot on him, and he played well. He played decent. I heard a stat the other day that if he had one more touchdown in his PPR, half point PPR scoring by week 8, he would have that separated him from running back 12 to running back 5 or 6 during that span of games. So what I'm getting at here is I think CEH is going to be kind of frowned upon this year. Fool me once, fool me twice kind of thing. But all the additions to the O-line, best quarterback in the game, I think CEH, he may surprise some people this year, and I'm trying to get on board after being heartbroken last year.
Yeah, and to go on one side of the ball here that's not really touched on very much, it's the of the 4, the Bucs offense and defense, and obviously the Chiefs offense, what they've done with the Lions, the Chiefs defense. So Chris Jones is quietly the second best interior defensive lineman.
He is a monster of a human being.
Aaron Donald. Yeah, exactly. Grady Jarrett also being kept out of the spotlight in Atlanta, but they also added Jaron Reed, Frank Clark. If he can do Frank Clark things on the field, then they have solid presence coming off the edge. Also, Nick
Just
Bolton.
Don't do Frank Clark things off the field.
Let's keep them on the field. If Nick Bolton immediately makes that linebacking core better, and he's going to start day 1.
Yeah, I like what they did, and I love watching this team. They are so much fun.
They really are.
If they click for a quarter, you're down by 4 touchdowns.
That's all it takes.
Because think about when they met in Tampa Bay last year. Tyreek went for like 273
in the first
half. Yeah.
He had a Devontae Smith first half.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the way that they start as well, they come straight out of the blocks. Like I think it was yesterday or the day before, they were showing the Chiefs versus Texans game from week 1 last year on UK TV, and we're just watching it, and Chiefs scored on the first drive down the field, and it was just I know the Texans are an absolute mess, but they just start so quick, and when you have that many weapons, it's hard to stop.
They come out and they kick you in the dick, and they don't stop kicking you in the dick,
which is super rude, but a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is fun to watch, but it hurts. And now it's time for the pronunciation game. Words Evan
All
can't
right.
say. Callum has been listening to our podcast, so he may have the upper hand, but we did add 1 or 2. Callum, it is time. AJ, take it away.
So, Callum, the first one here is the future number 1 overall draft pick. He is Clemson's starting quarterback, and he's a good one. What's his name?
DJ Uiagalelei.
That sounds like Evan.
That sounds a lot like Evan. Evan calls him DJ Uiagalelei. His actual name is DJ Uiagalelei. But that's very close, and plaudits for you. The second one, and this is the guy I did not mention who plays on the New Orleans Saints defensive line, formerly of the Kansas City Chiefs. What is his name?
Tano Passignon.
That's not that bad.
That's
real close, yeah.
Tano Passignon.
Ooh, that sounds delicious.
I was guessing the K was silent, but yeah.
Exactly.
One would think.
It is very much like filet mignon.
Yeah.
And just as delicious. So the third one is the Denver Broncos second string tight end as it stands right now out of Missouri. The first name you're probably familiar with. The second one is a collection of letters I'm sure you've never seen before.
I'm going to go with Okwu. Oh, cool. No, I'm going to give up on that one. I really don't want to offend him.
Albert Okwegbanam.
Yeah, I ain't got a chance on that one.
That was top shelf, Callum. We love that. So the next one is your hated New York Giants edge rusher from a school I always forget and a name that I still can't pronounce. What's his name?
I can't either. I'm really embarrassing myself as well here.
No, you're doing well.
You and everyone else who's done this.
Right.
I'm gonna. Honestly, I couldn't tell you. O'Shane Mines.
Ximenez.
I won't remember that the next time we do this.
It's a real tough one.
So the next one is just another piece of the growing best secondary in the NFL down there in Miami. This is a first-round draft pick from Auburn, cornerback. What's his name?
Noah Igbenine.
You had a good start.
Good start.
You did.
Good start. Noah Igbenogany. That is as tough as it gets. The next one here is a 1-week fantasy darling, do-it-all New England Patriots wide receiver. The first name is great, and Evan named that last name something that he will forever be known as. What's his name?
Olszewski.
Very much like the Duke head coach who has announced his retirement after the conclusion of next season. Gunnar Olszewski.
Olszewski, right.
In the manner of Mike Krzyzewski.
Evan refers to him as Gunnar Olszewski because he gave up about halfway through.
Yeah, that's how we know him.
That's how we know him. Ryan, you suggested this one deviously. I'll let you take this.
You're skipping the Navy head coach, though.
Oh, and he's one not to be skipped. This is Navy's head coach. A great man. Great coach.
It is misspelled.
It is misspelled. The second and third letter of the last name, you can go and swap those bad boys because I seem to have missed this in the proofreading that never happens. So what do you got, Cal?
Ken Numatalolo.
That counts because of the misspelling.
Yeah. Many plaudits for you. Many
all day.
Numatalolo.
Ryan,
N-I-U instead of N-U-I. This is an Oklahoma Sooner linebacker. Should play a big role this coming season for the Sooners.
David Ugwogbu.
That's pretty good. David Ugwogbu.
Wow. I hadn't tried this one. It hits the palate in a very particular way.
Can't wait to hear Gus Johnson say it.
All right, Ryan, and this one is also yours, as is tradition.
Yes, this is the Houston Texans kicker. Do you have access to a web browser very quickly?
Yeah.
Go to wikipedia.com.
Yeah.
And type in that name. And scroll down to his Christian name. The one on his birth certificate that they are still writing. Give that one a go.
How many letters is that? That must be at least about.
I think they added a few letters of their own in there.
The longest name I've ever seen, to be fair.
Yeah. All of the syllables that your mouth can pronounce. Fairbairn.
Fairbairn.
Well known as Kaimi Fairbairn.
Kaimi Fairbairn.
There we go.
Love it.
Callum, congratulations, my friend. You are tonight's winner of the McCorkle Award. Remember, this is absolutely Twitter bio material. And a quick shout out to last week's winner, Phil Mount Stevens of Next Man Up. But Callum, well done, my friend. Ryan,
bravo.
Thanks, guys, for having me.
Thanks for coming on, Callum. We do appreciate it.
This is another huge
thanks. Clap again.
Yeah, clap again, Dick.
Clap again.
Thanks for joining us, Callum.
Thanks,
we really
Callum.
appreciate it, man.
It's been a pleasure, guys. Thank you. Thank
It's
you for
been a pleasure.
inviting me.
Do you have any plugs?
All I will say is go Birds.
Yeah. No hair
That's
plugs,
all
just
we
for
need
the
to say, guys.
Philadelphia Eagles. Carson Wentz may need hair
Yeah,
plugs
fuck
now.
Carson Wentz.
Yes. Thanks for listening to the Shall We Football Podcast. You can find and subscribe to the Shall We Football Podcast on any major podcast platform, Apple, Spotify, Google. Every episode of the Shall We Football Podcast is also available in video format on YouTube alongside other content. So like, subscribe, and press the notification bell to be alerted every time we upload. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at SWF_podcast. Callum, your Twitter handle, please.
Is at Brits Guide NFL. We've sort of, I mean, we're two guys talking American football. We started it sort of back at December of last year, and you know, we love just chatting ball. To be honest, we don't really claim to be experts or anything by any means, but yeah, we love talking about it every week.
And we love having you on. My girlfriend's mooning me through the window. Have a good night.